I still remember the exact moment I realized my daughter didn't see me as her mother anymore, but as a nuisance, a stepping stone, a legal inconvenience. It was a Thursday morning in April. April 11th to be exact. I'd just finished folding the last of the towels, still warm from the dryer, when I saw the envelope tucked into the crack of my front door. No stamp, no return address, just a thick, sterile white packet shoved between my chipped green paint and the frame I'd meant to fix for years. I opened it right there in the hallway, barefoot, with the towels balanced under my arm, and I read the first line out loud like a fool. Petition to initiate legal proceedings regarding property ownership, filed by Claire Renee Lawson. Claire, my only daughter. She was suing me. For my house. Let me take you back. I bought this house with my late husband in 1988. We paid $92,000 for it. An old, modest 2-bedroom in Columbus, Ohio. Red bricks, crooked steps, garden that I kept alive every spring with petunias and hope. My name was on the deed. Mine. Never his, not even after the cancer came for him in 2007 and left me a widow before I turned 58. Claire was 12 when he died. She wore his flannel shirt for weeks and didn't speak much. I spoon-fed her soup for almost 3 days straight because she just shut down. I promised myself, then and there, I'd give her everything she needed. Everything. That included paying for her entire law school education at Georgetown. Not loans, not shared expenses. I paid $53,600 per year, plus housing, books, meals, and the damned networking events she insisted were important. All told, $245,000, give or take a few extra thousand for those internship relocations and that ridiculous $2,200 suit she said she needed for her first real deposition. I never blinked, never hesitated. I cashed out half my retirement, took on part-time transcription work, and even started renting out the second bedroom to traveling nurses through a website Claire helped set up. She always said she'd take care of me one day. She said it like a promise. Turns out it was a warning. The lawsuit claimed that, since she'd been contributing to maintenance and improvement of the property for over 10 years, she had a legal right to partial ownership. Claire had stayed with me after graduation for nearly 4 years, rent-free. I cooked, cleaned, paid utilities. She kept saying she was saving up for a down payment while dropping $600 on salon visits and $80 sushi deliveries 3 times a week. She never bought a house. She just stayed. Eventually, she met Evan. Evan was the only man Claire ever brought home that I liked. He was quiet, polite, always helped me wash dishes after dinner, brought me lilies on my birthday, and called me Mama Lawson, even when she rolled her eyes at him for it. They moved in together in 2021, right when COVID restrictions eased. Evan offered to help me with yard work on weekends. He even painted the hallway that same year, light blue. I can still smell the paint sometimes. But one morning, Claire called and said, "We broke up. Don't ask questions." That was it. No more Evan. Just silence. I didn't hear from him again for months, and when I did, it was because he showed up to mow my lawn. "Just thought you could use the help," he said, avoiding my eyes. "I'm fine," I told him, but he still finished the job. Then he left a Tupperware of lasagna on my porch 2 weeks later. Then he texted on my birthday, "Hope you're eating cake today. You deserve it." I never told Claire. So when that legal envelope came, when I read the words adverse possession, common law contribution, and equitable interest, I didn't cry. I laughed. I sat down at the kitchen table, folded the towels neatly, and laughed like a woman who'd finally accepted that the person she raised was gone. Claire didn't even call me. Instead, I got a call from her attorney, a smug little boy named Hunter something. He said, "Mrs. Lawson, Claire wants to settle this peacefully. If you transfer 50% of the deed, we can avoid court fees." I asked him, "Did she tell you I paid for her law school?" He said, "I can't speak to that, ma'am." So I hung up. That night, I pulled out every receipt, every tuition invoice, every housing contract I'd kept. I spent 4 hours organizing them into a neat little folder labeled, "Claire, the cost of love." I almost mailed it to her, but then I realized she already knew. She knew what I'd sacrificed. She knew what the house meant, and she didn't care, because it wasn't about the house. It was about control. The worst part? She didn't need the house. She'd just gotten a job at a corporate law firm downtown. $140,000 base salary her first year. She had a condo, a new Audi, and a fiancé. Yes, a fiancé. She didn't even tell me. I found out on Facebook. It was a photo. Claire in white, not a wedding dress, a sleek engagement gown, standing beside a man I'd never seen before, some smug banker with cufflinks and teeth too white to be real. In the comments, someone had written, "What a glow-up since Evan," and Claire had replied, "LOL, don't remind me." That's when something inside me cracked, not broke, cracked. And in the space of that crack, something cold and clear grew. I didn't want to hurt her. I wanted her to understand what it feels like to be used, to be erased. The very next morning, I found Evan's number. I texted him 5 words. "Can we talk?" In person. Evan showed up on my porch 2 days later. He knocked like a gentleman, 3 soft taps, and when I opened the door, he was holding a brown paper bag and a coffee carrier with 2 cups. "I brought cinnamon rolls," he said. "From that place on 5th. You used to love them." Used to. I hadn't tasted one in years. Claire always said they were too carby and made a face when I bought them. Said they were empty calories, like I was some overeating child instead of a grown woman with working taste buds. I stepped aside. "Come in." We sat at the kitchen table. Same spot I folded those towels, same spot I read the lawsuit, and we ate in silence for a few minutes. Evan finally broke it with, "She's really doing it, huh?" I nodded. "She sent me a copy," he said quietly. "She asked me to be a character witness." My fork paused in midair. "She what?" "She wanted me to tell the court you'd said once you'd gift her the house back in 2020. I laughed bitterly. "You mean when I said she could stay here as long as she needed because she was crying over a failed bar exam?" He shrugged. "I told her I wouldn't lie." I stared at him for a long moment. I noticed he looked older, tired in a way I recognized in my own mirror. But there was still something solid in him, reliable, more than I could say for my daughter. I pushed the empty plate aside. "I need your help with something." That night, I did what I'd been afraid to do for years. I called a lawyer. Her name was Beverly Tran, mid-60s, sharp as glass, and she didn't blink when I told her my daughter was suing me. "She's fishing," Beverly said. "Adverse possession requires at least 21 years of uncontested residence in Ohio. She's bluffing with the improvements angle." I nodded. "But I don't want to fight her in court." She raised an eyebrow. "You want to settle?" I smiled, tight and cold. "No, I want to give her exactly what she thinks she's taking, just not in the way she expects." By the end of that meeting, we had a plan. I wouldn't just fight back. I would transfer the house, sign over the deed, but not to Claire, to Evan. He was stunned when I told him. "You're serious?" he said. "Dead serious," I replied. "But why me?" I looked him in the eye. "Because I trust you more than I trust my own daughter. And because if she wants to take something from this family, she can negotiate with the last man she humiliated." He was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly he said, "I won't live here." "I don't want you to," I said. "I just want her to know she lost." We did everything by the book. Beverly helped me draft a formal property transfer agreement. I retained a life estate, meaning I could live here until I died, but the title belonged to Evan. The process cost me $3,100 in legal and filing fees, worth every penny. Evan signed the paperwork with steady hands. I signed with something closer to vengeance. I watched the notary stamp the document and thought, "Claire, my love, you should have remembered who raised you. A woman who knew how to survive on a widow's pension and still send her daughter to Georgetown." 3 days after the transfer was finalized, I got a call from Claire. She didn't greet me, didn't ask how I was, just said, "Why is Evan on the property record?" I smiled into the phone. "Because I gave him the house." Silence. "You what?" "You heard me," I said. "You wanted a fight over it. I don't have the energy. Evan's a better steward than you. You're insane." "No, Claire," I said, voice calm. "I just got tired of pretending your betrayal was anything less than intentional." She scoffed. "You'll regret this." And I replied, "I already regret raising a daughter who sees her mother as a transaction." Then I hung up. I expected backlash. What I didn't expect was a formal cease and desist letter from her law firm, accusing me of fraudulent conveyance. Beverly laughed when she read it. "They're bluffing again. She can't touch it. The deed's clean. The transfer's legal. And she has no claim." Still, it stung. The idea that my own child would drag me through paperwork and threats instead of picking up the phone like a human being. Days turned into weeks. Evan came by a few times to fix the porch light, to bring groceries, to sit with me and watch old cooking shows. It became our rhythm, comfortable, wordless, healing. Then, one afternoon, he dropped a folded piece of paper on the kitchen table. "I think you should read this," he said. It was a wedding invitation. Claire and her fiancé, Daniel. Elegant gold lettering. September 14th. No mention of family. No mother of the bride. Just a generic RSVP card and a dress code. Garden formal. "I'm guessing I wasn't meant to see this," I said. He hesitated. It was addressed to me, with a note that said, "Please don't invite her. Her, not Mom. Not even Mary Ann. Just her." That night, I lay awake in bed, staring at the ceiling fan, thinking about every dollar, every ride to debate club, every spelling bee, every sleepless night during flu season. And I realized something. Claire hadn't just rejected me. She'd erased me, like I was an inconvenience in her carefully curated new life, a woman she once needed but had now outgrown. But the thing about mothers like me is, we don't just disappear. We remember. We plan. And I knew something Claire hadn't even considered yet, something buried deep in Evan's closet, collecting dust, something she'd desperately want before the wedding. The wedding invitation haunted me for a full week. It sat on my kitchen counter like a smug little paper ghost, catching the light just enough to remind me every morning that I was no longer family, just a shadow to be excluded, rewritten out of the story. But what Claire didn't realize was that she'd left behind a chapter I still had in my hands. It came to me while I was organizing some old storage boxes for donation. I wasn't even thinking about revenge. I was just trying to make room in the guest closet, where I used to keep Claire's off-season clothes before she moved out. That's when I found the blue accordion file folder, labeled in Claire's perfect handwriting, Law School Docs, Private, Do Not Touch. It wasn't just school paperwork. Inside were records I'd never seen before, sealed evaluations from internships, personal essays, early applications, a few photos I recognized from when she and Evan had visited Boston one summer. But tucked in the back, jammed so tightly it was almost folded in half, was a handwritten letter, addressed to Georgetown Office of Student Affairs. No envelope. Just loose. I opened it, and my breath caught in my throat. It was a signed confession. A draft Claire must have written and never sent. She was admitting to plagiarizing a paper in her second year. Apparently, she'd used Evan's research from a moot court project and passed it off as her own in a federal courts assignment. There was a line I'll never forget. "I never meant to use Evan's work without credit. I was overwhelmed. I knew if I failed again, I'd lose my scholarship." She hadn't failed again. She graduated with honors. But if this letter ever saw daylight, especially now, with her job at Hanson Brigman, the prestigious white shoe firm with a zero-tolerance ethics policy, it could mean real trouble. At the very least, public embarrassment. At most, disbarment. Now I want to be clear. I didn't plan to ruin her. I just wanted her to remember who held the pieces, so I made one phone call. To Evan. We met on a Wednesday at 4:15 p.m. at a diner halfway between our houses. He ordered coffee, black. I ordered tea with lemon. I handed him the letter in a plain white envelope and watched his eyes scan each page. He read slowly, jaw tightening with every line. When he finished, he placed the letter down gently, then exhaled. "She never told me she used it," he said quietly. "She promised me she submitted something different." "She didn't," I said. "She used your work. And now she's marrying someone else and trying to erase us both." He looked up. "Why are you giving this to me?" "Because I want her to feel vulnerable again," I said. "Not destroyed, just exposed for once." He nodded slowly. "What do you want me to do with it?" I slid him another envelope. "Just mail this on the week of the wedding," I said. "To the firm. Not anonymously. Just a copy. No threats. No message. Just the truth." He raised an eyebrow. "You sure?" I gave him a tired smile. "I'm not sure about anything anymore, except that I'm done pretending my daughter is someone she's not." In the days that followed, I expected to feel guilt. Instead, I felt clarity. A strange, almost cleansing silence in my chest. I went about my days, gardened, read a few books, made chili from scratch for the first time in a year. I didn't hear from Claire. Not until August 26th. The phone rang at 10:41 a.m. "Did you go through my things?" she demanded. My voice was calm. I cleaned out the closet. "Yes." "You had no right. You left them here, Claire, for 2 years. That letter was a mistake. I never sent it. It's not real." I stayed silent. She hissed into the phone. "You're blackmailing me. You've lost your mind." And then she said the line I'd been waiting for. "If this costs me my job, I swear to God I'll make sure you never see a penny of my estate." I almost laughed. "Sweetheart," I said, "you already sued me over the house. You made your decision." Click. I didn't hear from her again, but Evan kept me updated. Apparently, a formal complaint had arrived at Hanson Brigman on September 11th, 3 days before the wedding. Just a photocopy of the letter, no sender, no commentary. Claire never told her fiancé, but she did call Evan, begged him to deny it was his work, offered him money. He said no. She panicked, postponed the wedding indefinitely. The photos never appeared on social media. The venue was canceled, and 3 weeks later, she was quietly removed from the firm's website. Evan forwarded me the page before it changed. Under Claire Lawson's bio, there used to be a proud quote, "I believe in justice, ethics, and accountability." Now the page just says, "This profile is no longer available." Poetic, isn't it? I sat on my porch that night with a glass of sweet tea and a blanket around my legs. The air smelled like autumn. And for the first time in months, I felt peace. Not because I'd won, but because I finally understood the truth. Sometimes the children we raise are not the people we hoped they'd become. And sometimes you have to teach them the cost of cruelty in their own language. She showed up on a Sunday. No warning, no call. Just a car screeching up my driveway around 3:12 p.m., engine still running, and Claire storming out in heels and a beige trench coat like she was walking into a courtroom, not her mother's porch. I was trimming dead leaves from the hydrangeas. I didn't stand up, just watched her walk toward me with fire in her eyes and panic barely hidden beneath her mascara. "You went too far," she said. "No hello." "Afternoon, Claire," I replied. "You don't get to smile. You don't get to act calm. You ruined my career." I stood then, slowly, and brushed the soil off my gloves. "No," I said evenly. "You ruined it when you stole someone else's work. I just reminded the world." She stood frozen. Her mouth opened, then shut, and then came the spin. The performance. "I was under pressure," she said. "You don't know what it's like to live up to expectations. Everyone just thinks I had it easy, paid for tuition, nice resume. But it was never like that. I worked for everything." I blinked. "No, I worked. You just collected." "I made one mistake," she snapped. "One! And you used it to destroy me." I walked toward the porch steps, slowly. My knees ached. "You sued me over my home, Claire," I said. "You hired a firm to come after me. You sent lawyers instead of phone calls. And then you banned me from your wedding." "That was for appearances," she said. "Daniel's family." I held up a hand. "I don't care. You erased me. So I responded like someone who had nothing left to lose." She followed me up the steps. "You gave the house to Evan just to spite me," she hissed. I paused, turning to face her. "I gave the house to the last person who treated me like a human being," she scoffed. "Oh, please, you always liked him better." "I respected him," I said, "which is more than I can say for you lately." Claire's face twisted into something unfamiliar, hurt, angry, desperate. "You want to ruin my life completely?" she said. "Is that what this is? Full-blown revenge? I stared at her for a long moment. Then I said quietly, "No. I want you to understand. I want you to remember every time you tried to use your power against me, that I had power too. It just looked different." She sank into one of the rocking chairs on the porch, crossed her arms. Her voice dropped. I lost the job. I sat beside her, careful to keep space between us. "I know. And Daniel, he's reconsidering things. He says he needs time to think." Silence. I watched a leaf fall from the maple tree in the front yard. She sniffled once, just once. Then she said the first true thing I'd heard in months. "I didn't think it would actually fall apart." I nodded. "That's the thing about pride," I said. "It holds everything up, until it doesn't." We sat there like that for a long time. No yelling, no begging, just quiet. Bitter, shared quiet. Then she asked something that surprised me. "Did you keep the letter?" "I have a copy," I said. "Evan has the original. Would you give it back to me? Please." I turned to her. For a second, I saw my daughter again. Not the lawyer, not the ambitious adult, but the girl in mismatched socks crying over a lost toy. "Why?" I asked. She didn't answer immediately. Then finally, "I need to start over. Clean. I can't if this thing is floating around." I took a deep breath. "I'll give you the letter, Claire. One copy, on one condition." She looked at me warily. "What?" "You drop the lawsuit. Officially. I want signed documentation. And I want a letter in writing, acknowledging the full value of what I paid for your education, tuition, housing, food, everything. No arguments, no discounts. Full acknowledgement." Her jaw tightened. "And," she said. "And," I added, "you write me an apology. Not for legal purposes, for me. I want to know that you know what you did." She stared at me. I could see the war inside her. Pride versus survival. "Fine," she said finally. "But I want a signed agreement that neither you nor Evan will ever distribute that letter again. Done. And you never speak of this to Daniel." I smiled. "You already did that yourself." She didn't respond. We had the documents drawn up by Beverly. Claire came with her new lawyer, a younger woman who didn't say a word unless spoken to. I handed over the photocopy in a sealed envelope. Claire didn't thank me, but she did sign everything. The lawsuit was dismissed. The house remained in Evan's name, with my life estate untouched. The acknowledgement letter listed every dollar I'd spent, $245,930, 42 dollars. And the apology, well, it was stiff, it was begrudging. But it was real. She wrote, "I forgot what love Lou. Kid, like when it wasn't transactional. I'm sorry for turning on the person who built my future from scratch. It wasn't much, but it was a start." Evan and I had coffee the day after. "She's not used to losing," he said. "She never learned how to be grateful," I added. He smiled. "You taught her a lesson she won't forget." I stirred my cream into the coffee. I didn't do it to teach her. I did it to remind myself I wasn't crazy, that I wasn't just imagining the betrayal. By October, Claire had moved to Chicago. New firm, lower tier, less pay. I only know because Beverly sent me the job listing she applied to. She never called again. She sent a Christmas card in December. No note, just, "Happy holidays." I didn't respond. You can't unraise a child. You can't rewind the choices they make, but you can reclaim your dignity. You can say, "Enough." You can draw a line, and when they cross it, make sure they understand they're not the only ones who know how to wield power. Sometimes, the best revenge is survival. With your name still on the mailbox, there's something about autumn that makes silence feel heavier. The porch is quieter now. The rocking chair next to mine stays still. I don't get texts from Claire anymore. No surprise visits. No more shouting over deeds and documents. Just birds, tea, and space. I should feel sad. Some days, I do. But mostly, I feel clean. Like something toxic finally leaked out and left me alone in my own skin. The apology she wrote sits in my nightstand drawer. I've only read it twice. It wasn't grand. No teary confession or heartfelt speech, just 6 sentences. I forgot what love looked like when it wasn't transactional. I'm sorry for turning on the person who built my future from scratch. She called herself misguided, blamed pressure, ambition, exhaustion. All the usual words people like Claire use when they want forgiveness without truly feeling remorse. But still, she wrote it. That's more than I ever thought I'd get. Evan comes by once a week, sometimes to check the gutters, sometimes to drop off dinner, always to sit for exactly 28 minutes on the porch before heading out. We don't talk much about Claire anymore. It's not that we're being polite. We've just moved past her. She became a chapter, one I had to edit heavily. But now, she's just part of the story, not the whole thing. About a month ago, I met with Beverly again. She's handling my estate. Still want to keep Evan on the deed? She asked. I nodded. Yes, and I want to add something to the will. She smiled. You always surprise me. I told her exactly what I wanted. In writing. It's not revenge, not really. It's just my last word. You see, Claire doesn't know this, but I kept something else. Not the plagiarized letter. That's been destroyed, per our agreement. No, what I kept was the first essay she ever wrote in 5th grade. It was about who she admired most. She wrote, "My mom is brave because she doesn't let being tired stop her from making pancakes. She helps people, even when they don't help back, and she says being kind is better than being right." That's the Claire I raised. So in my will, I added a clause. To my daughter Claire, I leave this house, but not yet, only when Evan dies, or chooses to transfer it to her himself. Until then, it is his and mine, and a reminder that sometimes what you think you're entitled to must be earned back. And tucked behind that clause, that old essay. In her handwriting, crayon smudged and full of spelling errors. She may never get the house. Evan's in no rush to leave it behind. And frankly, neither am I. But one day, when she opens that envelope after I'm gone, I want her to see who she used to be. Before ambition chewed her up and pride spat her out. Before she saw me as a means to an end. Some nights, I wonder what will happen to us in the long run. Maybe she'll call. Maybe she won't. Maybe she'll grow into her own version of me. Just older, more tired, and wondering what went wrong. I hope not. But if she does, she'll have my words waiting for her in ink, not accusations, just the truth. The final truth is this. Love is not a blank check, and forgiveness is not free. You can betray your mother. You can erase her from the wedding. You can slap her with a lawsuit and expect her to roll over quietly. But some of us don't break. We wait, and when the time is right, we write our own ending. So here I sit, porch light on, tea warm, my name still on the mailbox, my story still mine, and the house, it's still mine too, for now, and maybe, just maybe, forever.